In the beginning, the world was young, a vast expanse of untamed wilderness and raw potential. Amidst the endless horizons and whispering winds, the first footsteps of humanity left their mark. Yet even in this new world, beneath the rising sun and the fading stars, the shadow of conflict crept quietly, waiting to cast its long and tragic shadow over the human heart. This is the story of Cain, the firstborn son, and the very first murder in recorded human history, a story that resonates through millennia, echoing the deepest struggles of human nature: jealousy, rejection, and the painful cost of choices made in anger. Welcome to Faith and Facts, where biblical history meets archaeology and ancient literature, unveiling the truths that lie beneath our most foundational stories. If you are passionate about exploring history through the lens of faith and discovery, don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you never miss a journey into the past. Imagine a time long before cities, kingdoms, or written records. The world was raw, wild, and unfamiliar. Two brothers walked this early earth: Cain and Abel, sons of Adam and Eve, the first man and woman. Their lives were intertwined with the dawn of humanity itself. Cain was a tiller of the soil, a farmer whose hands knew the rhythms of the earth, planting, nurturing, and harvesting. Abel, younger but no less vital, was a shepherd, tending to flocks, living close to the pulse of nature's creatures. Their story unfolds in a landscape of dust and sweat, where survival was a daily challenge, and every breath was a gift. Yet beneath the surface of this simple existence, a storm was gathering, a conflict born of the heart. One day, both brothers brought offerings to God. Cain presented the fruits of his labor, the crops he had grown from the soil. Abel brought the firstborn of his flock, the best and most treasured. But something happened in that sacred moment of preference, a rejection. God accepted Abel's offering but turned away from Cain's. What was it that caused this divine favor? Some scholars suggest the difference lay in the nature of their offerings. Abel's was a blood sacrifice, the life of an animal symbolizing atonement and devotion. Cain's was from the fruit of the ground, lacking that symbolic depth. But deeper still, this moment exposed the fragile human heart, where feelings of jealousy and rejection began to stir. Cain's face darkened with anger. His countenance fell. A divine warning echoed. If you do well, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door. Its desire is for you, but you must rule over it. A chilling prelude to what would come. The brothers went into the field, away from the eyes of their parents and the rest of the fledgling world. There, in the quiet expanse under the burning sun, Cain's anger overwhelmed him. In an act that would forever scar human history, Cain struck down Abel, his own brother, the first act of murder. The story of Cain and Abel is often viewed as an archetype, the first recorded human conflict, the emergence of violence in a newly created world. But it is also deeply rooted in ancient culture and the realities of early human life. Agriculture, the practice Cain embodied, was a revolutionary development. Archaeological evidence shows that around 10,000 BC, humanity began the shift from nomadic hunter-gatherers to settled farming communities, a transformation known as the Neolithic Revolution. Farming brought stability, but also new challenges: ownership of land, resource scarcity, and social tensions. Meanwhile, shepherding, like Abel's livelihood, was equally vital. Pastoralism was a key component of early economies in the ancient Near East, often coexisting uneasily with farming. In this light, Cain and Abel's story captures a fundamental cultural tension: the shift in human livelihood and the conflicts that can arise between different ways of life. Moreover, the motif of a divine acceptance or rejection of offerings is paralleled in other ancient Near Eastern texts, such as the Epic of Gilgamesh and Sumerian hymns, where offerings and sacrifices were central to the relationship between humans and gods. But who was Cain beyond this moment? The Bible tells us he was marked by God, not merely punished, but protected, bearing a sign so that no one would kill him in revenge. This mark, though mysterious, represents a complex divine mercy amid judgment. Cain's exile took him eastward, to the land of Nod, east of Eden. Alone and burdened by guilt, he faced a future unknown. There, tradition tells us, Cain built a city, an act of resilience and perhaps redemption. Imagine Cain, isolated but determined, seeking to forge a new path amid wilderness and uncertainty. Archaeological records show that early human settlements began appearing east of Eden's traditional location. Modern-day Mesopotamia, a cradle of civilization. The biblical Cain, therefore, may represent more than a murderer. He embodies the human capacity for both sin and survival, for failure and for forging ahead despite it all. One of the most intriguing elements of Cain's story is the mark God placed upon him after the murder. This mark was not merely a punishment, but a divine protection, signaling to others that Cain must not be killed. For his life was now uniquely preserved under God's care. What was this mark? The ancient texts do not specify. Over centuries, scholars and theologians have speculated it might have been a physical sign, a tattoo, a change in appearance, or even a supernatural aura. Some ancient Near Eastern cultures used marks or symbols as signs of protection or covenant, linking Cain's mark to broader cultural practices. In Babylonian and Assyrian iconography, certain symbols convey divine favor or protection, suggesting that the biblical text reflects contemporary understandings of sacred signs. The mark's purpose was both a warning and a mercy, acknowledging Cain's crime, yet extending a form of grace, preventing the cycle of vengeance from continuing. It reveals a profound theological tension between justice and mercy that is woven deeply into the fabric of the narrative. For Cain, this meant living a life of exile but also survival, carrying the burden of his actions, yet never being abandoned entirely. This paradox speaks to the complex nature of divine-human relationships in the earliest chapters of biblical history. This story is more than a singular event. It resonates through cultures and epochs. Ancient flood and conflict stories across civilizations, from the Sumerian tales of Enlil and Denki to the Egyptian and Hittite myths, reflect common human experiences of struggle, loss, and moral challenge. Yet the biblical account remains foundational, standing apart as a historical and spiritual touchstone. Not simply a myth, but a record intertwined with archaeological findings. Cain's story marks the beginning of human moral awareness, the dawning recognition that choices carry consequences, that anger unchecked can bring devastation, and that mercy can coexist with justice. Similar themes of brotherly conflict and fraternal rivalry appear in many ancient traditions. The story of Romulus and Remus, the legendary founders of Rome, tells of brothers whose rivalry ended in fratricide, shaping the destiny of a civilization. Likewise, the tale of Esau and Jacob in biblical tradition echoes the complex dynamics of sibling rivalry, inheritance, and divine favor. These narratives reflect a universal human grappling with family bonds, jealousy, and the consequences of human choices. In some ancient Near Eastern cultures, tales akin to Cain's story served as moral and social lessons, teaching communities about the dangers of unchecked anger and the importance of social order. For example, in Mesopotamian literature, stories of divine justice often highlight how human emotions can bring chaos if not governed by wisdom and restraint. These cultural echoes underscore that Cain's story is not isolated, but part of a broader tapestry of human reflection on morality, justice, and mercy. Additionally, in Islamic tradition, Cain and Abel, known as Qabel and Habel, are also recognized as the first brothers, with a similar story of the first murder, underscoring the story's cross-cultural and interfaith significance. This shared narrative across Judaism, Christianity, and Islam highlights the deep-rooted nature of this human drama and its enduring moral questions about choice, consequence, and divine justice. In reflecting on Cain's story, we find a mirror to our own lives. The emotions he felt, jealousy, rejection, rage, are universal. Yet so too is the call to master those emotions, to make choices that heal rather than harm. His exile and survival remind us that even in failure, humanity can find the strength to continue, to build anew, and to seek forgiveness. Cain's journey is a timeless lesson etched into our collective memory, a story that challenges us to confront the shadows within ourselves and the light of mercy that can transform them. As we close this chapter of ancient history and human nature, we see Cain not just as the first murderer, but as the first to wrestle with the complexities of human emotion and divine justice. The story of Cain and Abel remains a profound testament to the enduring human condition, our struggles, our failings, and ultimately, our capacity for growth. Thank you for joining us on this journey through faith, history, and archaeology. If you found value in this exploration, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your engagement helps us continue bringing these ancient stories to life. Until next time, keep seeking truth where faith and facts meet.